everyone, and welcome back to another episode of What the Forensics. My name is Nicole, and I'm joined here again by the lovely Journey and Rebecca. This week, we actually are shaking things up a bit. We know we said we were doing John Benet Ramsey at the end of last week's episode, but scheduling life, so we're going to do Laci Peterson's case, and Journey's going to be telling us all about this one. We just had some scheduling conflicts, and so we switched around our topics and are just keeping you guys on our toes or on your toes. But that will be coming out later. And as always, leave us a review or comment if you get the chance. We do love to read them. It helps us kind of know what to keep doing and what's of interest to everyone listening. If you can like, subscribe, and follow where you can, it helps us grow and reach more people. And while we do our best that we can for research, we can sometimes make mistakes. We are human, but we are actively learning alongside you. So we hope you enjoy that with us. And with that being said, I would like to note that there is a listener's discretion advised this episode, as there are discussions of infant death and domestic violence. So with all of that being said, Journey, would you like to tell us a little bit more about this case?
Yes. So I'm just gonna hop right into it. Laci Rocha was born on May 4th, 1975. Her mother's name is Sharon Rocha, and her dad's name was Dennis Rocha. She has an older brother named Brent, and they lived on a dairy farm in Escalon, California. Sharon and Dennis split when Laci was just over a year old, and Sharon moved with the kids to Modesto, California. And when Laci was about 2.5 years old, Sharon met Ron Gransky, who she would remain in a long term relationship until his death in 2018, but they never actually married. Laci stayed in contact with her dad and would go out to his farm and visit him on weekends and stuff, and whenever she was able to. Her mother describes her as a very outgoing and talkative person. She made friends with everyone, and her nickname was Jabberjaws because she was always talking, I guess. And her friends had really nothing bad to say about her and confirmed that she was a very magnetic and cheerful person. And you can see that in the photographs of her. Like, she draws you into her, and she just has this huge smile, and it looks like she's a very bubbly and fun person. Scott Peterson was born on October 24th, 1972, to Lee Peterson and Jackie Latham. He was their only child together. His dad had 3 kids before, and his mom had 1 kid before they got married, and then they had Scott together. And his family speaks very highly of him and describes him as a rule follower, someone with lots of friends, and very intelligent. Scott and Laci met at California Polytechnic State University, or Cal Poly, in 1994. Laci was taking ornamental horticulture, and Scott had changed his major quite a few times, but graduated with a degree in agriculture business in 1998. They met at a restaurant that Scott was working at, and Laci came in a few times to kind of see him before she gathered the courage to leave her number on a napkin for him, which he accidentally threw out because he didn't realize she had actually written anything on it, but they were able to get together and start dating. Their relationship was described by most as very happy and loving, and a lot of people said that they just seemed very, very happy and in love. Except for one of Laci's friends, she said that Scott was love bombing Laci and took her on a very expensive trip within a year of them dating, which set off alarm bells for her. But Laci seemed happy, so there was no alarm bell loud enough to say anything about it. And when they got engaged, it was just the two of them in their living room, and it was pure and romantic and not over the top like some of the other things that he's done before, according to her friend, who thought he was love bombing her. And they got married while they were still in school in 1997. And I believe they finished school, or I think Laci had already graduated and Scott had 1 year left. So they finished school and then moved back to Modesto to be close to her family and friends, because Scott's family lived in San Diego and Laci wanted to be close to her family.
Was love bombing a term back then, or would there have been an equivalent to that?
No, she said in the documentary that I watched with her interview in it, she was just like, he was going over the top in all of his like proclamations for love and like blah blah whatever. And she said, I think today's term would be love bombing.
Right. So just,
So there
yeah,
wasn't.
describing it as if, yeah.
Yeah. Because
Interesting.
even when I was listening, I was like, "That sounds like love bombing," and then she's like,
Hmm.
"It was love bombing," and I was like, "Okay, perfect."
That
Good to
makes
know.
sense.
So they're married, they're talking about kids. At some point, Lacey called her mom very upset and told her that Scott didn't want kids. A conversation you should have with your spouse before you get married.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Um,
seems a little important.
Agreed.
right? Especially because all Lacey wanted to be was a mom, and everyone who
Yeah.
was close to her was like, "She'd be an amazing mom." So, whatever, she called her mom very upset. 6 months later, she called her mom again to tell her that Scott had actually changed his mind and they were gonna start trying for kids. This kinda set off a little bit of alarm bells in her mom's mind because she's like, "You don't just change your mind that quickly on such
Hmm.
a big thing." Like,
Yeah.
that's a
Life
huge
altering
conversation to just
decision. Yeah.
yeah, to just switch your mind. But they were trying, and then in 2002, they got pregnant with their son, Connor, and they were due February 10th, 2003. I don't really know how long it was between these phone calls and them getting pregnant. I'm assuming they were close together. On December 24th, 2002, Lacey was up very early, and when Scott woke up, they watched an episode of Martha Stewart Living where she talked about making meringues. And that comes in, that's an important piece of information later.
Okay.
Okay. It's like that's really
Okay.
specific.
It's really specific, yeah. So, Lacey's plan for the day was to go grocery shopping and take the dog for a walk before going to her parents for a Christmas Eve celebration. Scott's plan for the day was to go golfing, but he woke up and it was too cold in air quotes to go golfing, so he went fishing instead.
That feels like
But
a
you're
worse activity for when it's cold.
I
Unless you're ice
agree.
fishing.
He was not ice fishing.
Because you're still
So,
outside and you're on water at that point, or around water, which is typically
yeah.
cooler than you would get not on water, you know?
Yeah, because now you're wet and cold. So, either way, he decided he was going fishing. He left around 10 a.m. and drove to his warehouse where he stored his boat and worked out of. He was a fertilizer salesman and he used this warehouse to store the fertilizer he was selling and kind of like work out of. I didn't really understand. I do not understand his business model, but I also don't know a lot about selling fertilizer, but whatever. He
This seems
also
sketchy,
sent,
and I was gonna say this seems
yeah.
sketchy and something that could maybe come into play later on. Just too convenient.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just like he was like a salesman, so he would drive around a lot trying to sell fertilizer and would keep like samples in this warehouse to have
Mm,
on hand. But then if there was like a big order, it obviously wouldn't come from this little warehouse
right.
because it
Okay.
looked to be the size of like a storage locker. Like it really wasn't very big.
Okay. I was picturing like mounds of
Okay.
fertilizer for some
I
reason.
was
No,
too.
no,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
little boxes, which is
Okay.
why
Oh,
I'm
That
thinking
makes
okay.
more sense.
samples. And
Okay.
this
Okay.
boat that he had was just like a little metal boat with a motor on the back. Like it wasn't a
Gotcha.
huge
Okay.
anything. So while he was at his warehouse, he sent a work email before leaving. And then he drove to the Berkeley Marina, which was about 90 miles away, and paid for parking at 12:54 p.m. according to his parking stub. He then boated out to this weird little island in the bay and is gone for about an hour. He gets back to his truck around 2 p.m. and leaves a voicemail for Lacey on her cell phone and on her landline or on their landline at 2:15 p.m. His message said, quote, "Hey beautiful, I just left a message at home. 2:15. I'm leaving Berkeley. I won't be able to get to Vella Farms to get that basket for Papa. I was hoping you would get this message and go on out there. I'll see you in a bit, sweetie. Love you. Bye." End quote.
Okay. Pretty standard sounding message.
Yeah, there's really nothing odd about that. He returns to his warehouse around 4:15 p.m. to unload his boat. I This was never pointed out in anything, but I don't understand why it took him like 1 hour
Yeah.
to get there and 2 hours to get back.
Yeah. I was just gonna note that.
Yeah. No one I haven't seen any of the sources address it, so I don't know, whatever. Maybe traffic. And when he got home, he saw that their golden retriever Mackenzie was running around their fenced and gated yard with her leash on. And apparently, their neighbor saw their dog running around the neighborhood and put her back in their yard and closed the gate and didn't take her leash off. So he brought Mackenzie into the house and supposedly calls for Laci but got no answer. And so he kind of assumed that she went to her parents already for supper, even though her car's in the driveway.
That's not great detective skills on his part, but I guess if she
No.
did
Maybe
have plans, then maybe they could
could
have
it
picked
have
her up.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe a
Yeah.
carpool situation, especially if it was, like, a dinner together, maybe if they live close by, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I don't really know
Oh,
because it sounded
she's
like
pregnant at this point, so she
she's
can't
she's 8 months
drink.
pregnant. Yeah.
Oh.
So, I mean, you can still carpool if you're pregnant, but I had in my mind, like, she was carpooling because she was drinking.
Yeah.
Hmm,
But it seems weird
okay.
to me that like they're going to her family's Christmas
Yeah,
dinner and
yeah.
she like left without him without calling him or anything. Like it's only quarter after 5. So
Yeah.
like anyway, he puts in a load of laundry, eats some food, and then takes a quick shower, which is
If you have
interesting
dinner
if you're
plans, go to dinner.
yeah, why are you eating supper?
Yeah.
Um and then he calls Lacey's mom to see if she's over there and learns that she's not. So then he tells her mom that Lacey is missing. He then
That's
calls
jumping to conclusions really fast.
really quickly. And her mom was like, people don't say so and so is missing lightly. Like that's a really heavy statement. So she's like, it's kind of
Yeah.
weird that he was just like, oh, well, she's missing.
Not even
Yeah.
"Oh, I haven't seen her today, she hasn't been around," none of that, it's
Yeah.
just, "She's missing, she's gone."
Yeah. She's just not there. So he
Hmm.
then calls all of her friends to see if they've seen or heard from her, but they haven't. He calls Sharon back to tell her that no one has seen Lacey. She tells him to go talk to the neighbors and check the park. And the first neighbor he talks to, he said that he had been golfing all day and returned home to find Lacey missing. And when Lacey's stepdad calls 911, he said that Scott had been golfing since 9:30 that morning.
Story's crumbling.
Yeah, so apparently everyone knew of his original plan to go golfing and he didn't tell anyone else that he was going fishing
Hmm.
or like he wasn't even sure what he did. And so then when Scott eventually told Ron and Sharon that he had actually been fishing, they were very shocked because they had no idea he even had a boat to go fishing on.
So was there any, like, I may have missed this, aside from the parking stuff, was there any other, like, evidence in terms of, like, cameras indicating that he was at the barn or the wherever the warehouse was? It's just basically him saying
Um,
this was what he had done that day?
well, that's where his boat was loaded and offloaded.
Right.
So they knew that he had taken his boat out of there, driven to the marina 90 miles away, and
Okay.
then brought the boat back.
Okay.
And so when Scott met the detective assigned to the case, because they called the police came right over. Scott was very calm and polite and got on a first name basis right away with the detective instead of like calling him detective or Mr. or Sir. He was like, hey, Al. And so then he told the detective he was fishing for the day and that his wife was going to walk the dog and maybe grocery shopping. And then when he got home, he couldn't find her. He gave the detective the parking stub for where he went fishing that day without being prompted. And he also took them to their bedroom to show them that Lacey's purse and wallet was still in their closet and her car was still in the driveway, and he gave permission for them to search both of their vehicles. So he
He
was kind of
seems
just
really
like,
eager to give up
yeah,
information that they haven't asked for.
yes, that's very much how it was painted. He also took them to his warehouse and showed them his boat. The detective thought it was odd that Scott had told another officer that he was using a big silver lure for fishing, and the said silver lure was still in the package with the receipt for it and his fishing license, which he only bought on December 20th, 2002.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So they were
Curious.
kind of like, it was a day of decision, yet you bought your license 4 days ago. Like, your story's not lining up.
Yeah.
They eventually brought him to the station to be interviewed on video. He was only interviewed for about an hour, but the whole time he was like leaned back, hands in pockets, relaxed for the whole interview, which is super odd when your 8-month pregnant wife is missing. There should be some show of emotion, at least.
Yeah. "Hey, let's find her," kinda thing.
Yeah, there was, like, nothing. He was so calm, just, like, shooting the shit with the detective. And so the detective wanted him to take a polygraph test, which he initially agreed to, but after talking to his dad about it, he then changes his mind the next day when they go to get him to take the polygraph test. And as we know, it doesn't really matter if you take a polygraph test or not. They're inadmissible in court. They're just using it to get you to confess. On December 26, 2002, the police came to the Peterson house with a warrant to search it. They spent 2 days thoroughly searching their house and his warehouse. They were immediately suspicious of him saying it was a morning of decision to go fishing, but bought his fishing license on December 20th. He only bought his boat on December 9th, and then he searched the bay tides on December 8th instead of like fishing anything.
Hmm.
So they're like,
This is a
this
lot
is
of
weird.
stuff that doesn't align with impromptu fishing.
Exactly. And he told the detectives that a lot of the reason why he went was just to get his boat in the water. But the detective was like, you don't drive 90 miles by yourself just to get your boat in the water
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah. Are they not around
Um,
any water at their
Not
place, I
really, no.
guess? Not really? Okay.
No,
No
I think
rivers or anything? Okay. Because I
I
feel
don't
like
think
you
I
like to
guess
test
not.
out your boat, even just to put it in a river or put it in a small body of water, you don't have to go fishing necessarily.
Exactly.
I don't know. There's just alternatives.
Yes, so that's very much what they were thinking. During their search, they found an anchor in his boat with no rope attached to it or rope in the boat or surrounding area that could have possibly been used for the anchor. They found needle nose pliers with a long black hair wrapped around it and evidence of him making more anchors that weren't present and he didn't admit to making. So they found
Hmm.
evidence that he had made 5 of these anchors and they only found one. And these anchors were um just like cement in like a little sandcastle bucket. So they weren't really that
Oh,
elaborate with a piece of rebar bent over the top to tie the rope onto.
yeah. And they only
So
found one.
they found one.
The four
But they
were
found
who knows where.
Yeah, they found evidence of 5, and he's like, "I used the rest of
Hmm.
the bag of concrete to, like, patch my driveway or something." And so then on December 26th, 2 of their neighbors came home to find that their house had been broken into and burglarized since they left the morning of Christmas Eve. And so the police kinda thought that it could have been linked to Laci's disappearance, and if it wasn't, then maybe the burglars saw something happening. And so police were able to find 2 suspects in the burglary, Stephen Todd and Donald Pierce. And when they learned that they were suspected for not only a burglary but also Laci's disappearance, they were they very quickly became cooperative with police and were like, we did not have any part of her disappearance. We only burglarized this home. Here's everything we took. Whatever. They didn't know what day they did it on. They said they did it on the 27th, which is impossible because the family was home that day. Somehow, between the burglars and investigators, they were able to narrow it down to potentially being the very early morning of the 26th. And so some people were kind of like, the 26th is the last date you'd want to burgle a house in that area
Yeah.
because there's so many police officers and so many media vans. But one of the burglars did say that when they got there, they thought it was odd that there was so much media down the road, but they hadn't heard of the Peterson case and didn't really think much of it, supposedly. But on the map, it looks like the house that got burglarized was like directly across the street from the Peterson house. So unless I saw that picture wrong,
Hmm.
I don't really know.
Do we know if there were a lot of drugs or substances involved in this burglary?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe
Okay.
they weren't. I don't know. I don't know. They're not stand up humans.
Yeah.
But yeah, they confessed. They turned over all their evidence. There was no evidence from the Peterson house. Like everything was from the house that they burglarized. And they took a polygraph test, and there was evidence that they were with family when Laci went missing, so they were dismissed as suspects. And while this search of his house and his warehouse is going on, Scott's family and Laci's family have come together and opened like a call center, and they've been putting up flyers and looking for Laci. Scott was very adamant about not wanting to be photographed or recorded, and he claimed it was because he only wanted people to focus on finding Laci and to use photos of her only, not photos of him and her. He would be there, like, helping hand out flyers and searching for her, but would kind of crack jokes and kind of not act in the way you'd think, like, a potentially grieving spouse would act. And her friend said it was odd, but they also welcomed it because it kind of lightened up some of the heaviness they were feeling, just that he was so calm and jovial, I guess. And then on December 30th, 2002, Scott's girlfriend, Amber Fry, came forward.
What?
So,
Plot twist. Plot twist.
yeah.
Wasn't expecting
Surprise.
that. Oh no.
He, yes, the loving, grieving husband has a girlfriend.
Shocker.
Um, so one of Amber's friends had shown her a newspaper article with a description of Scott in relation to his missing wife. And so she called police and told them that they had been dating for months. So they drove down to Fresno to talk to her and see if she's telling the truth. And she was. There's like so many photographs of him and Amber together. And she remembers so many details from their dates and like what they're wearing. Like there's no doubt that they actually were dating.
So did she know he had a wife?
I'm getting there.
Okay. Okay.
So the police advise her to not tell him that she called the police, and asked her if she'd be okay with them like recording her calls with the hopes of him confessing or incriminating himself somehow. And so she agrees. And then we learn more about their history. So Amber met Scott through a friend who said that Scott was looking to meet the one, in air quotes. And since Amber was a single mom, she was also looking
Oh.
for a serious long term relationship. And so they started talking on the phone often. And he told her that he lived in Sacramento, but worked in Bakersfield a lot. So she was kind of on his way and he could stop in and visit her. And she said that he was very sweet with her daughter. And when she asked him if he had ever been married or had children, he said no to both of those things. And then when she asked if he wanted kids, he said that her daughter would be enough for him. Like he didn't need anything more than her.
Mm.
He's
And
a
so he
shady
was,
dude.
yeah, it's just not good. He was able to keep Amber a secret until one of his coworkers introduced him to one of Amber's friends and said something about Scott being married. And so this friend called Scott after and told him that if he didn't tell Amber, they were going to. So Scott calls Amber on December 9th, 2002, the same day he bought his fishing boat.
Do we think okay, continue.
hmm and asks to meet her in person. He goes over to her house and admits that he lied and that he was married, but he lost his wife, and this would be his first holiday season without her.
Do we think the call happened before the fishing boat purchase, or the fishing boat purchase was before the whole I lost my wife story and he's just
I don't know.
chicken before the egg situation?
Yeah,
That
it
does not help his case
no,
whatsoever.
it does not.
Either way, he's screwed.
Yeah. I think it could have been just like a light bulb moment, but also
Where he went, I fucked up. How do I fix this? And by fixing
yeah,
this, it's not taking accountability for any of his actions. It's I'm gonna kill my
it's
wife instead.
I'm going to kill my pregnant wife, yeah,
My pregnant wife, 8-month pregnant wife.
so that my girlfriend doesn't find out I lied. So I can't speak to his motivation on this part, but
yeah, yeah.
using the
We're not
term
saying this is why he did it.
yes, using the verbiage he lost his wife and then his wife goes missing
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
interesting. And then on December 14th, Scott goes to a Christmas party with Amber while Laci went alone to one with her friends. And we've got
Hmm.
pictures from that night from both of them. Her friends say that she was a bit down that night, but kind of thought it was her pregnancy and they didn't really pry by the sounds of it. So I don't know what story he told her to get out of going.
Yeah.
And so, as we already know, she called the Modesto police on December 30th to tell them their whole story. She agreed to wearing a wire and recording her phone calls. And prior to this, Scott had told her that he was going to be spending Thanksgiving in Alaska with his family, Christmas in Maine, and New Year's in Paris. And they had organized times to call so that they wouldn't miss each other's phone calls. And the first recording they got was him calling to wish her a happy New Year's from Paris when he was most likely at a candlelit vigil for Laci.
That's terrible. Holy. Oh.
Yeah.
I hate men. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
What?
Yeah, so wild. Also, after finding out about Amber, police requested to put a wiretap on his phone so that they could hear what he was saying to anybody, not just her.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point in January, they confronted Scott with photos of Amber, and he responded very calm and unbothered again, just like no reaction, like no emotion, nothing. He then called Amber a few days later and told her what had been going on in his life with Laci missing. She like point blank calls him out for telling her that he lost his wife a month earlier and was like, "What did you mean by lost?" Like she some of the recordings were really interesting to listen to because she asks the question that you hope she's going to ask,
Yeah.
and she's very good about it. He kind of like tries to play the victim and get her to believe him, and he said that quote, "Once we find her, he'll be able to explain everything to her." And
When
she's
the
like,
police confronted him about like with the photos of Amber, did he like confirm or deny anything? Or was he just like, yeah, that's a thing?
"I'm not really sure."
Okay.
I don't think they really needed him to confirm anything. I
Yeah.
think the police were more just like, "We know.
We know. Hey, by the
We
way, yeah.
know you're lying. Like, we don't believe
Hmm.
a word that comes out of your mouth because of this." Roughly 2 weeks after Lacey's disappearance, the police began searching the bay that Scott went fishing in. Sonar found what they thought could be a body, but it ended up just being like a different anchor,
Oh,
not the one that he used.
okay.
Around this time as well, the photos of Scott and Amber got leaked, so they had until the magazine came out to inform his family about their relationship so that they didn't hear about it from a magazine. And then on January 23rd, 2003, Amber gave a press conference telling her side of the story with the hope that people would leave her alone because she got a lot of negative press as a
Yeah.
result of this
Yeah.
magazine. Scott continued to call Amber even after the press conference to tell her that he was proud of her for doing that. And he was like, "When I heard you on the radio, I had to pull over and throw up." And she's like,
Ew.
"What?" And he's like, "Because I was just so amazed at the strength you have."
Ew.
She's
That's
like,
just moved to vomit at that point.
"Yeah,
Just so
not,
emotionally enthralled.
yeah, not, wow, your
My
girlfriend's
life.
speaking out about
Yeah.
you." Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. This
Hmm.
same day, or no, sorry, at this point, Amber and the police decided that maybe they shouldn't be in contact anymore. So she was like, "We can no longer talk. I'm sorry." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe
That's
when we
valid.
find her, like I can." She's like, "No,
Oh,
no, thank you."
no. No, no.
Um, and then this same day, Lacey's family came forward to announce that they no longer supported Scott's innocence.
That's
They,
Fair.
good. I'm
yeah,
surprised they ever supported his innocence, to be honest, but
they
to
spoke
each their own.
Yeah, they spoke really, really highly of him until this point. Like, no one thought he did it
Yeah.
until this point, and they realized, oh, he's a liar and a good
Yeah.
liar.
Yeah.
Yes. So, roughly a week after this, Scott decided to go on a media tour. And on an interview with Good Morning America, he said that he told police immediately about Amber, which was a lie. And this interview went horribly for him because, again, no emotion and weird answers. And so he was like, "You know what would fix that? If I did one on one interviews in my home with other reporters." He, again, didn't show emotions in these interviews. He would redirect to Laci when asked a personal question in like "I need you to focus on Laci because she's missing. She's what matters in this situation, not me. Don't ask questions about me. Ask questions about Laci. She's what matters." Which, like, yes, but
Mhm.
weird.
Yeah.
And he denied that he had anything to do with her disappearance. And in the documentary that I watched about this, there was a really spooky clip of 4 different screens from 4 different interviews. And he said, I didn't have anything to do with her disappearance the exact same way in all 4 things. And they played them at the same time. And it was really spooky.
So his whole thing's
Very
scripted. Like he's
diverse.
just going
Yeah,
through a script at that point.
pretty much.
Why would he think it's a good idea to hold a press tour in his own home?
I'm
That's
not
just
sure.
weird. It's
Yeah, I
just
think
strange.
because yeah, a lot of people were mad at him for not speaking to press ever. They were like, if you want to find Laci, you need to be doing these interviews. You need to be talking to press. And so then he finally was like, oh, to get the heat off my back of my girlfriend, I will start talking to press. And that will kind of put the focus back on Laci in a
Hmm,
sense.
Right.
I don't really know. His
interesting.
logic is just not there.
Yep.
So on February 18th, they served a second search warrant to search his house. They were mainly looking to see what he changed between the first and second searches. And what they found was that his house was very messy and disorganized. He had sold Laci's car and made inquiries into selling their house and turned their nursery into a storage room.
Hmm.
That's despicable.
Yeah.
In
If
less
you're
than 2 months.
Yeah.
if you're
And your wife's
hoping of
yeah.
that your wife is alive and you genuinely want to find her, then she
Yeah.
probably had the kid by now. I don't think you want to turn
Yeah.
your soon babies. That's so fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is
Even just
8 days
like
after her due date.
yeah, I was gonna say even the horizon of your wife coming back, you're not
Yeah.
gonna change
Yeah.
that much of your house.
You're not going to sell her car. You're not going to sell the house. You're not going to turn your baby nursery into a storage room. It's been like 2 months.
Exactly. And I feel like most people who have missing family members like don't touch anything with the
Yeah.
Yeah.
hope that they come home. And he's like,
Yeah.
there's no chance. And even if she did come home, I don't want to live in this house anyways. That was his like explanation for wanting to sell the house was like, even if she came back alive, I don't want to live
Well,
here.
she's gone
That's
now. There's no one to fight with about selling the house.
yeah.
Sucks.
So everyone's like, this is really suspicious. This is not a man who's waiting for his wife and unborn baby to come home. But they
Yeah.
couldn't arrest him until they had a body since it was only a missing persons case, not a homicide. So there was nothing they could do about it
Right.
until April 14th, 2003. A badly decomposed body washed up on shore near Point Richmond in San Francisco Bay, only miles from where a male fetus had washed up the day prior. And so this is now a murder investigation. They can now arrest him.
Would it be a double murder at this point? Like a double homicide? Okay.
Yeah. As a result of this case, they made a law in the states that if you harm a pregnant person, you get charged with 2 counts for to both the
Okay.
pregnant person and the baby.
Okay.
It's called the Laci and Conner law.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so the forensic pathologist did determine that Conner had died in utero and his body was expelled when her abdominal cavity ruptured as a result of decomposition. So it wasn't like she gave birth and then the baby was killed. They were both unfortunately killed.
That's gruesome.
Very gruesome. And so they got warrants for Scott's arrest. Since they had placed a tracker on his truck at the beginning of this investigation, they quickly went to it but found someone else driving it. So they just started listening to his phone calls. So he must have figured out that he had a tracker on his truck somehow,
Yeah.
but he didn't know that they had a wiretap on his phone. So they were still listening to his phone calls. And they found him in San Diego on April 18th. He was on his way to golf with his dad and his brothers. And when they arrested him, they noticed that he had dyed his hair and his goatee a gross orange color. I think it was a botched bleach job, I think.
Yeah.
And then upon searching his vehicle, they found several knives, over $15,000 in cash, Viagra, multiple cell phones, a shovel, rope, credit cards for him and his family members, as well as his brother's ID, who he kind of looked like with his hair dyed. So we think that's why he dyed his hair, and many other just weird things.
Hmm.
And because he was found so close to the Mexico border, police think that he was trying to flee, but he also had family in the city, so there can be arguments made for both sides. During their drive back to Modesto, they received a phone call identifying the bodies as Laci and Connor. And when they told Scott this, he didn't really say anything or react in any way. He just shed like one tear.
So they were able, like, they arrested him without knowing that the bodies had been identified at the point. They just were like, "There's a likely chance, so we're just going to take our
Yeah.
opportunity here." Yeah. Okay.
Like, what are the chances we're missing a a
Another
woman and a
woman,
baby? Yeah.
and yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so they stopped for food shortly after, and Scott placed like a big order, which the detectives thought was super odd because he just found out his wife and son were found dead, and how was he able to eat
Mm-hmm.
after this? So they're like, that's weird.
Is he? Also, not that it matters. Are the cops footing that bill, or are they going to make him foot that bill? Like,
Yeah,
I
I
hope
if
don't
I
he
had the
know.
has to
cop,
foot the whole thing.
I was gonna say if the cops were paying for my lunch, I may be ordering a large meal as well, but
Yeah.
not if I gotta cover it.
Yeah, I don't really know. Anyways, his case was moved to San Mateo because it was so popular in Modesto. Like everyone knew what happened and had their opinions on it.
Yeah.
Court proceedings started in March 2004, and they selected a jury of 6 men and 6 women. And the trial officially started on June 1st, 2004. His case was really interesting because there was no direct evidence connecting him to the case. Like, they had no physical evidence connecting him to the case. It was all circumstantial. And he was able to hire a big name defense lawyer. And the prosecution was having a really rough time with this case. The Martha Stewart making meringues thing, for example, the prosecution was like, you can't prove that that was on TV. There's no way. Like, he had to, like, he didn't watch that. That wasn't real. And then the defense found the episode that aired on the 24th of December and played it. And there's a scene talking about meringues. And they're like,
Oh,
Pretty sure he watched this." Like,
yeah. Were they able? I know that you're saying like no direct evidence, but once they found the bodies, were did they not attempt to go back into the bay to see if they could find the anchors, like get a dive team down there or something, and try to see water currents and kind of backtrack from there?
yeah, they spent a lot of time in the bays. And I guess I should have clarified, they found her torso. Her arms and legs and head were never found. It was not
Oh.
because he dismembered her, it was because of decomp and, like, ocean activity
Oh.
and
Oh,
potentially being anchored to the bottom by your arms and legs.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't find any anchors. They did search, but because of the bay's activity and the mud and the muck that was there, there's like
Yeah.
zero visibility. At one point, the sonar like fell into the water, and it took them 4 different dive attempts to even find it, even though they knew exactly where it landed, just because there's like zero visibility and so much mud that it's so hard to find things at the bottom.
Hmm.
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 So they gave their best effort, but they weren't
Mhm.
able to find anything. The death penalty was on the table for this case. And in the documentary that I watched about this case, they actually interviewed 2 people who were on the jury. And so it was really interesting to hear from them like 20 years later. And the most interesting thing that they said was that they didn't find his affair to be that big of a deal, but it was more his actions and his words that were incriminating.
Yeah, that's
Just
fair.
because, yeah, they showed that he was such a liar and putting on this huge charade, so that it was entirely possible that he did kill his wife, because you can't believe a thing he
Mhm.
says. So they were like, it wasn't so much the affair, it was more of what he said to his girlfriend that, yeah, made him
Yeah.
seem the most guilty.
It
The
makes it
jury
easier to
delivered.
lie. Sorry, I was gonna say it makes it easier to lie about killing your wife when you've been lying about even having a wife for the last however many months to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
you know what
And
I
I
mean?
think had his girlfriend never come forward, there
Yeah.
would have been a really strong case for him not to have done it because no one knew him as a liar.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
which is so scary. And so the jury delivered their verdict on November 12th, 2004. They found Scott guilty of the murder of Laci and Connor and sentenced him to death a few weeks, months later, however long the sentencing hearing takes. His family believes to this day that he didn't do it. He has always said that he's innocent, and Laci's friends and family do believe that he did it. Since his conviction, Scott's sister Janie got her law degree to fight for his freedom because
Yikes.
they believe
Yikes, Janie.
Mhm.
Yikes.
They believe so strongly he didn't do it. And then on August 2nd, 2020, the California Supreme Court overturned his death penalty since the jury had been improperly screened for bias against the death penalty, and he was resentenced to life without possibility of parole, and then in like an extra 15 years for the death of Connor. And then in 2024, his case was accepted by the Los Angeles Innocence Project, claiming that there was new evidence from the trial which supported his
Hmm.
claims of innocence. In May 2024, a judge granted Peterson's motion to allow DNA testing on a piece of duct tape found on Laci's pants during her autopsy. And when it was tested in 2003, it showed that there was DNA present, but they weren't able to generate a profile. I'm also not really sure what they wanted to get from that because defense lawyers can argue that, oh, she's his wife. Of course his DNA is on her. And if there's no
Yeah.
DNA,
Yeah.
none of his DNA, then they're like, yeah, he didn't kill her. There's none of his DNA. So it's kind of
I feel
a
like it's not enough
loose.
to be exculpatory either way. Like, it's
Yeah,
just not a great piece of evidence to have over 20 years later.
exactly. And so the judge said that the testing shall be conducted within 45 days of the order or as soon as practical, and the results will be submitted under seal. So we won't know when the testing's done and what it says because it won't be available to the public.
Oh.
I find it, and this isn't to say nobody deserves a fair trial or whatever, but I'm surprised that the Innocent Project actually took on a case like this.
Me too.
Because
Yeah,
I don't know what cases they typically take on, but I would think that they would want reasonable doubt for a case to be
yeah,
taken on. And in
Yeah.
what's been presented, at least here, you don't really have that. Like, from what's been gathered, even though there's no, like, yes, it's all circumstantial, but from the evidence that's there, it kind of all leads to that. Or him
Mhm.
yeah,
being involved in some way. He may not have been physically the one to have done it, but there's some involvement, which would still have him guilty.
yeah,
Yeah, like this honestly seems out of character based on the cases that I know that the Innocence Project has taken on.
right?
And
Mhm.
like those pretty much screamed innocence from the beginning and
Yeah.
were messed up by like tampering of evidence or like
Yeah.
eyewitness misidentification or racism. It's like, I don't know, this just seems out of character for the
Yeah,
Innocence Project and I'm confused.
I agree. I don't really understand it. I kind of tried to dig into it a little bit, and the most I could find was that people are trying to say that it was the burglars. Someone actually kidnapped Laci and held her until she gave birth to Connor before killing them both, and that there was a burnt van found down the street with a bloody mattress in it that they're like,
What?
why wasn't that included in the case? And they're like,
What?
because it has no
Hmm.
link to Laci.
Because
And they're like, test the blood on the mattress. And they're like,
what
why?
mattress?
Yeah, the random bloody mattress they found in a burnt van down the street at a later date that has
Hmm.
no connection to anything. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know.
I feel like most people aren't just randomly kidnapping an 8-month pregnant woman, forcing her to
Yeah.
have the child, and then
Killing them
Murdering them
anchoring
both.
her
both.
limbs, murdering them both, anchoring her limbs, and dumping her in a bay. It's not really what I do
Yeah.
on a Saturday night. I don't think most people do that. Like,
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
Christmas
maybe
Eve, no
Especially,
not.
less.
yeah,
Like,
especially the same bay that he was fishing in earlier that day.
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
bit weird.
and they're like, their explanation for that, like his family's explanation for that is that, well, they were following him. Like they were like stalking them. And so they knew that
Hmm.
he was there. So they knew that that was a good spot to dump the body to
Right.
frame him.
Just feels
Right.
like we're grasping at straws here.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And then supposedly in 2025, after a year-long investigation, the Los Angeles Innocence Project filed that they have uncovered new evidence that, quote, eviscerates the prosecution's theory of what occurred and proves Peterson's innocence. I don't know what this is.
Hmm.
I only found one source that said this. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't really know.
Yeah. Who
But
knows? Maybe we
Interesting.
find something else out later on, but I don't have much hope for that.
yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what comes out of this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anything.
It's weird that 20 years later we're like still dealing with it
Mm-hmm.
when
I
it
mean, like, hey, if someone else actually did it and they found the person, cool. But right now, I don't know what else there could be to like disprove or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah, it's such a there was a statistic said like in the documentary quite a bit that pregnancy increases victimization and interpersonal violence is the number one cause of death for pregnant women. So they're kind of like
For
it
someone
makes
who
sense.
didn't want to have children too.
Yeah.
Like and who had a girlfriend on the side, like
Yeah. Those men
it all
cannot be
adds up.
trusted.
Yeah, it's not good. That being said, Lacey's mom wishes for Laci to be remembered as a person and not as a victim. So when you see pictures of her, think of her not as Scott's victim, but as this beautiful, bubbly person. And we will put numbers up on our website that you can call to get help if you are in a violent situation, pregnant or not. I think they'll have been up there from another episode that we have done as well.
They're
And
up
like I
from the
mentioned,
Jennifer Hillier Penny episode. Those are in our
right.
sources.
In 2004, I kind of already mentioned this, a law was passed called the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, or Laci and Conner's Law, which states that under federal law, any person who causes death or injury to an unborn child during the commission of a crime upon a pregnant woman will be charged with a separate offense. So they will be charged with two offenses, I guess. And that's all I have on the Laci Peterson case. It was a really short case. There really wasn't much there. But yeah, I believe that Scott did it. And I hope that it
Me
doesn't
too.
happen again.
Yeah. I was gonna say it kind of sounds like it, but it's interesting to see that there's so much 20 years later of people saying like, no, he didn't do it. Let's try and find more. Where I'm like,
Mhm.
at this point, I don't know what evidence you're gonna find
Mm-hmm.
until I don't know, other people come
Right.
forward, but it's been 20 years, so I don't think they will.
Exactly.
And do you know this is not anything we need to know if you don't know, but with Connor's name, did Laci name Connor before he was born? Like had they decided upon a name or was he named after by the family?
Yeah, so they had decided on the name Connor
Okay.
before. So they were already like
Okay.
calling
Okay.
him Connor before he was born because I thought the
Okay.
same thing.
Yeah.
Something else that I forgot to mention, I just realized the hair that was found wrapped around his needle nose pliers was
Mm-hmm.
tested with mitochondrial DNA against hair in Lacey's hairbrush and it matched. But because mitochondrial DNA isn't as solid as nuclear DNA, it wasn't used as evidence, really. They were like, that's
Interesting.
not
But
It's
good
wouldn't
enough.
still
it
DNA. It still shows the mother's side, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, it may not show Lacey, but it's someone in that lineage then still.
hmm
Yeah.
And she
That's a
doesn't
really
have a
interesting
sister.
thing to leave out.
I guess,
Hmm.
and it could have been her brother, but I feel
Hmm.
like well, he doesn't have long hair. So, like, and everyone was like, how can her hair get on a boat that she's never seen
Yeah.
without her being killed there?
Mm-hmm.
And then other people were like, well, we saw her in the warehouse with the boat. And so it's just a he said, she said kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
also know
annoying.
that my hair gets everywhere.
Yep.
So,
Mine
Yes.
like,
I
too.
can confirm.
especially with my boyfriend, like, there's definitely a chance where my hair has been somewhere that I've never been.
Yeah. Wrapped around needle nose pliers, though, different story.
It's
But
weird.
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah.
huh.
So, I don't know.
Well, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
had known the name. Like the name was very familiar, but I didn't know the story behind it all, or even the fact that
Same.
a law had been passed, which was really neat to see.
Hmm.
Um, but I appreciate you telling us all about that. I noticed that there's a forensic corner from
There
Rebecca too.
is. It's a pretty short one, but I thought it was kind of cool. So this was recent, I think. When was the article? I didn't even check. May 13th,
May, yeah.
2025. So
Oh
pretty
wow.
recent. Police in, and I'm sorry for butchering
Oh,
this,
I
Gloucestershire, UK.
I think it's Gloucester.
Gloucestershire, UK. That's what we're going with right now. Um, they're trialing a type of, they're calling it a type of forensic spray called Smart Water, which I had to be really specific in my searches for it because Smart Water is also a water brand, but it's not the water bottle brand. They've been testing this thing called Smart Water to protect victims of domestic violence. So basically, it's this liquid that fluoresces under UV light that I couldn't find the specifics of this part, but it has like its own specific DNA in it.
Oh,
Um, and it can last on human skin for about 6 weeks after it's contacted with. So the
Wow.
person who it's on won't necessarily know that it's there because it's invisible under normal light, but under UV is when it shows up. So they've kind of been testing this for like domestic violence victims, specifically for ones that have like perpetrators who are currently going through the court system and might have like court orders against seeing the victim and reoffending and things like that. So basically, they've given all of these victims a bottle of this spray, and they tell the perpetrator for their conditions, like, okay, we gave your victim the bottle of this spray, if you touch them, we're gonna know. And they found that so far, at least in the sample of women they've given it to, it's been working. The perpetrators haven't been going after the victims or reoffending. And also kind of cool about it specifically is that each of the sprays, like the different bottles given to all the different women, have their own like DNA code. So like
Oh.
so a man could be sprayed by like two different sprays and they would know it was two different women's spray that was impacted.
Is
wow.
it kind of in like a pepper spray sort of thing? So it like carries the same, it acts the same, and it's a matter of just having to spray someone with it?
That was my understanding of it.
Okay.
Apparently it's been used for like a few years now in the UK, specifically for like burglary.
Hmm.
Um so I think it's like if someone were to break into your house, you have this spray, you spray them, they run away, and then like up to 6 weeks later, they could still figure out specifically who just burglarized their house. But yeah, that's just neat. That was pretty
Yeah,
much all I
that's
have to
really
say about
cool.
that. It's like one, it's a good identifier. So if a woman has this and sprays a man, be like, well, just go shine a UV light on a bunch of men. That'll tell you. But
Hmm.
also, it's having like a psychological impact on the perpetrators. Like they're, at least in the research so far, they're reoffending less against the same victims because they're aware of the deterrent the women carry.
Yeah.
Which it's
That it's
sad
more
that they need that.
identifiable. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's sad that we need that, but like it's helping. So I'm like, I'd
Yeah.
rather a world we didn't need it, but it's good to have
Hmm.
anyways.
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow, that's
That's
But
cool.
really
yeah,
cool. Do
yeah.
you think like practicality in the long run, they would put together just like 1,000 different strains, I guess not really strains of it, but with their own coding to them. So it kind of gets reused in the system, but it's not being used as frequently in certain areas. I'm just thinking in terms of like identification purposes, if this is used on a wider scale, or if
Yeah, because I
just
can't imagine them making like a unique DNA
for every
for
person that
every single
uses it.
bottle of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not so sure. I definitely can picture like them having like a set of DNA strands or a set of like individual characteristics that maybe they sold so that maybe a woman could register, like, I got this bottle, and then like maybe they register the bottle and it says, okay, they have strand XYZ, and that could help narrow down a victim pool
Yeah.
if,
These
yeah,
5 guys have light up under UV. Let's narrow it down to see matching it to that serial number kind of thing, who it could be.
yeah. Yeah, or like a woman with a certain number sprays, and there's like, say, a lineup of men, and
Mhm.
maybe for some reason 2 men have been sprayed. And then we should probably look into that a little more too. It's like, why are there
Yeah.
2 of you? But
Yeah.
that would ideally, then, if 2 of them with different registers had it. Words are really hard.
I get
If,
what you mean. I
yeah,
get what you're talking about though. I'm following.
okay,
Yeah,
thank
yeah, yeah.
you.
No, that would make
But yeah,
sense.
but yeah,
Because
that's, I
ideally in
think
a
it's only in
like
the UK right now, but it would be pretty cool, like, to see more research about it, because as far as like the article that I've read, it's pretty much just a pretty small trial right now.
okay.
Cool.
Cool. Hopefully we see more of that though. Or even just like
Yeah.
variations, just some other means that are made to kind of act more of as a protectant for women out and about, or just vulnerable populations out and about.
Yeah. Anyone who might need a bit of extra precaution.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it's wild that it's just like we're stronger almost psychologically.
Uh-huh.
That just even the threat of like put there being evidence of you doing this is enough for them
Yeah.
to be like, okay, I won't do it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gross.
It is gross. It's very yucky. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Joy fun. Well, thank you so much. That's actually really interesting. I love to see that there's still new things coming out and like new ideas and items being developed in the world of forensics.
Me too.
Our next topic, we've got a couple in the queue right now, so we'll keep it a little bit of a surprise. It could be one of 3. We'll keep you guessing. We may have a guest episode coming up shortly, if not next, but it'll just depend on timing and what our schedules look like. But we've got a couple lined up for you guys. And with all that being said, thank you for listening. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and YouTube at What the Forensics. Our website is whattheforensics.ca. This is where you can find all of our sources and any resources that you may need that we discussed during the episode. And our email is whattheforensics@gmail.com if you want to just ever reach out and say hi. But this has been another episode of What the Forensics. We hope you learned something new, and we're excited to see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Just a reminder to everyone that we are not professionals in the forensic science field. We are just interested in forensics and want to share what we are learning with our listeners. We're trying to give you the most accurate information, but we are human and can make mistakes. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you next week.